Welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Monday, July the 18th. With me today is Alison McConnell. How's it going, Alison?
It's hot, Sean. Other than that, I'm fine.
Good. Yep, fine and dandy here. A wee bit hot as well, I must say. It's not like me. I'm usually on Baltic. But I suppose first things first, as you all know, we'll do the one football stuff. Their app, One Football, you know what it is. First word for our sponsors. Their app is your one-stop shop for scores, fixtures, etc., etc. You can download it via the link in the description. And even better than that, if I do say so myself, running along the bottom there is our own website, which you can get full access to for £3 for 3 months at the moment, meaning that takes you all the way from now right up until mid-October. We've been on the go for just about a year now, which feels mental, Alison. So we appreciate each and every one of you who subscribe to the website, and also those of you who regularly watch these briefings. It's much obliged for your help as we try and approach covering Celtic in a kind of new and a thoughtful way. So much appreciated. I'm sure you'll agree, Alison.
Indeed.
So Alison, Aaron Mooy is the only place to start the day, I think. It seems that it might be a goer after all. He's about to turn 32. He's a free agent, Australia international. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I'm not sure he would displace any of the regular starters that would be in ahead of him, but he would obviously supplement the squad. Again, you kind of look at Harry Kewell coming in over the summer, another Australian coming in. Obviously, Ange Postecoglou knows him, has an existing relationship with him. A free agent coming on the back of the move in China. So I think it would supplement the squad rather than, I think, being a first-team starter.
Alan Robertson, Tony cleaning out the wardrobe. No, he's just on a day off. I think, regular viewers, Alison, will know that we kind of addressed the Mooy link last week and what my opinion was on it. But just to reiterate, or almost double down, I suppose, if that's the way you want to put it. I'm not convinced that he's what Celtic really need in there in a general sense. He's not the type of presence that we've often spoke about making the difference at European level, I don't think. He's not really a Rogic replacement either, as I keep saying. I think that's Matt O'Reilly. I think that's been evident. He's played central or attacking midfield more than he has defensive midfield, so I can't imagine that he's really a McGregor competitor either. I don't think anybody really would be, strictly speaking. That said, though, and I mentioned this last week, I have watched some video of him recently, and I know he's not played in a while, but just in general sense. And he still looks a decent player. I don't think he's the ideal recruit at this stage of his own career and this stage of the Celtic squad's development, but I also don't think that he's a James McCarthy type signing either, because I've seen that criticism being levelled a few times in the last 24 hours. I think domestically and in a depth sense, he would be able to cover pretty much all of those three spots in midfield if need be. In a way, it's that kind of signing rather than a starting quality signing. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think he does offer a certain kind of versatility in the middle. I think we have spoken about this extensively, about the intensity of the season once it's up and running between now and the World Cup kicking off. And I think, I think you probably will need a bit of depth to cope with the Champions League campaign as well as the league. And I think he offers scope in that sense, but I would struggle to see where he would fit in terms of a starting jersey every week.
A few comments here. Paul Byrne, I'm worried about this transfer. Maybe I've just not seen enough of the guy close up, but it seems a strange one. He's free, I suppose, so it's low risk, but who does he displace in the midfield? Probably nobody. Murney 10, more than happy with Aaron Mooy in a free transfer. It's low risk. That's a term I think we're going to be getting used to with the Aaron Mooy deal. It's low risk. A good player, the manager knows, if reports are true, wants him to. James Rudin, as long as it's free, this is actually an interesting take, Alison. As long as it's free, as it frees up funds to get a quality centre back, it might work out, as Mooy does have the ability. Do you see those two as being linked? That if they get a free agent midfielder, then it's more likely they get another centre back in and pay a bit of money? Or
I see the logic. I see why you would come to that conclusion. I'm not sure that it's necessarily linked. I think probably what you'll find is that there is a pot of money. There is a set amount for transfer fees, etc. So I see the argument that if you're not spending a whole lot of money on another midfielder, that it frees up further funds. I think probably the likelihood is that there are maybe a few names on a list of options in terms of supplementing the centre half position, and I do wonder if it's more dependent on who goes out. I think I think you would still maybe have a big question mark over Christopher Julian and whether or not he's still there come the end of the window in terms of salary, etc., and everything that goes with it over and above the transfer fee. But I think there is a very clear need for another centre half to come in. I think you've seen that even in the pre-season games that you've seen so far over the course of the last month or so. I do think there is a necessity to strengthen in that area of the pitch. And I think Ange Postecoglou said at the weekend, as we know, I expect at least one or two in this week, and you would be inclined to think that second position would be a defender.
Max start with a fair point. Apparently it's a 1-year contract, reported that is the case, Alison, with an option for another year. And Max makes the point that suggests that the clubs maybe learned from giving James McCarthy a 4-year deal at the start of last season. I think that is a fair point.
I think the McCarthy situation was a real aberration from how Celtic tend to work. I think it was very unlike a Celtic contract for a player of that age, of that ilk, who'd come to the club with a catalogue of injury problems, hadn't been playing regular first team football, a 4-year contract, highly unusual for Celtic in that situation. And I think that's the Aaron Mooy contract that has just been suggested would be far more sensible, I think, in terms of protecting the club and just seeing where it goes over the course of a season, and far more in keeping with the way that Celtic tend to do business.
I think it's probably worth keeping in mind in terms of where Aaron Mooy might fit in the team. As I say, it's probably a depth signing. Remember, Nir Beaton clocked over 2,000 minutes last season and is no longer there. Tom Rogic clocked almost 3,000. So it's a lot of minutes to replace. As I say, I think O'Reilly and Turnbull probably cover the Rogic hole, and I think Hatate coming into the campaign with a rest and a pre-season behind them too will count for a lot. Besides that, you're kind of looking to see if Yusuke Ideguchi can make that leap, and beyond that, you're wondering if any of the other French players could as well. So in that sense, maybe Aaron Mooy's not a bad depth option, especially domestically, and it's just that probably most people expected a first 11 quality addition rather than a rotation piece, Alison. I think that's maybe where some of the doubt is coming from. A lot of that will depend on expectation for me, but on a shorter deal, like the one we just discussed, 1 season with an option for a second, then it is kind of no risk in a way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The other thing I would say too is that you're bringing in a player with a wealth of experience, which I think is important given where Celtic are and the possibility of coming in and stepping in at times. The other argument I think you would say is the middle of the park is probably where there is the most intense competition for places at Celtic. I think you have a middle three that effectively picks itself just now. I mean, you mentioned Callum McGregor just at the start of the programme and saying, it's highly unlikely that you're ever going to sign someone that's going to compete for his position. That only leaves another real 2 midfield positions. When you look at Matt O'Reilly, I would agree with you. I think Matt O'Reilly is a player you will see a lot of this season. I think he'll get a lot of minutes. I think he'll be increasingly important as the campaign goes on. Rio Hatate, I think you saw the contribution that he made last season, and I think there's an argument too that David Turnbull looks the player he was at the opening half of last season following the injury issues that he's had. I think he's had a very strong pre-season campaign. So I think it's an incredibly difficult position in the pitch to get in and dislodge the guys who have got the starting jersey at the minute. And I think for any midfielder coming in, it's going to be very difficult to work their way into the first team.
Ozzy Adam with a fair comment that maybe it's another midfielder so that Ange Postecoglou's got the option to play 2 sitting midfielders sometimes, maybe in Europe. I don't know. That's a fair point. But I suppose there's a Beach Boys if Celtic signed Ronaldo on a free for a year, some people would still find fault in it. I think that's just people's nature, isn't it, Alison? But on that note, then I suppose this type of move where it's kind of dividing opinion, it always brings up, and it has in the comments, that notion of, if Ange says he's the guy, then he's the guy, and all of that kind of thing. Where do you stand on that kind of almost blind faith attitude towards it? Is it just that Ange Postecoglou's got it so right so far that he's got that credit? I mean, I'm not really for that kind of blind faith, but what's your view?
It's a checks and balances thing, isn't it? No, I think if you put a winning team on the park, I think you have significant credit in the bank. I think what happens then is that people are inclined to trust you. People are inclined to say, yeah, you've got it right this way. So, we'll trust you that your judgment is still correct. That works until you get it wrong. That works until there's one that doesn't work, until there's a game plan that doesn't work, until there's a heavy defeat. It never takes long for criticism to come. I think that's one of the guarantees in football, is that at some point that will waver, that there will be criticism. But I think at the minute, given what Ange Postecoglou delivered in his first season, that I think all of a sudden, I think he is anointed at the minute. I think he could make a decision and people will happily, the majority will happily go along with it, because up until now, he has shown that his judgment has been credible and that it's been successful to a stage. And what you get then is people saying, yeah, we concur, we go along with it. I don't think it takes much to knock it.
This is kind of a pivot, I suppose, to a different type of question, but it's just something that's in my mind. Do you think that it's like that if Mooy is the answer, then perhaps other targets have actually fallen through in the background? I mean, he's been a free agent for a while. Is that the kind of thing that you think's likely, or?
I think probably. I think I think there are always targets. There are always a list of people that you maybe want to go and identify. I hear what you're saying, that this could have been done a month ago if that was a first target. There's no reason why it takes maybe this length of time to bring him in. I think it's something that you'll never know. You won't ever get clarification on that. Certainly what you would say is that Ange Postecoglou has an existing relationship with him. He knows what he's signing. I think if you look at what he done in terms of going back to the J-League in Japan, where he knew the players that he was signing, he knows the way he wants to play, he knows the philosophy that he has, and he identified players that suited the type of football that he wanted to play. So when you talk about folk going along with it, people being unwilling to criticise, I think that's something that you have to consider too, is that he knows the player, he knows his own system. He must have a confidence and assurance that there's an ability to slot in there.
Yeah, I mean, I do, I get that, and he's signing someone who knows exactly what he brings to the table. The only thing I would say is it's been quite a while since he managed them. In that time, Aaron Mooy's obviously left the English Premier League and went to China. Not played much football this year at all yet, and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, as I say, as much as I say I don't think he necessarily fits what's going on at Celtic at the moment, I have almost talked myself around to it as a decent depth option, if nothing else. Les, with a comment, I don't think Aaron Mooy fits Ange's bucket list. Appears to be a fallback, kind of similar to the question I just asked you there. Missing out on other key targets, hoping proved wrong. I think most people, even if someone is critical or sceptical about it, I think most of them will probably think, well, I'd rather be sceptical and then he actually proves us wrong rather than anything else. I don't think anybody's actively hoping that he doesn't do it, if you know what I mean. But I do think it's worth saying about the Beaton situation as well. He clocked a lot of minutes, even though he didn't start all that often. It's an interesting one. It is an interesting one. Anything else to add on Aaron Mooy, Alison? Are we moving on to on-field stuff again?
Yeah, I just think I think the manager knows who he's signing. I think that would be the point that you would make. I would not anticipate that he, right now at this point in time, you wouldn't anticipate that he's going to dislodge any of the first team starters. But I actually think, given the experience he has, I think he adds a decent bit of depth. The one big question mark, of course, is fitness, match sharpness. Is he prepared to be able to come in and get up to speed with the rest of the squad? That would be your big question mark, I think, given the very significant lack of game time over the last year or so.
So I'm just going to add this in. Beach Boys saying, if you have the ball 75% of the game, what's the point of a big bruise in the middle who can't control or pass the ball? See, this has been my point all summer. I don't mind And I even agree that in Europe especially, there's a need for a kind of combative, athletic midfielder, all the rest of it. But I've always said it, and I've annoyed Tony all summer about it, they need to have a technical level commensurate with playing for Celtic, if you know what I mean. Otherwise, you will get lost. And I do agree with Beach Boys. Sometimes, if it is just a defensive midfielder, there probably isn't a need for them in Celtic's team for 90% of their games. So I do take that point on board, and maybe this is the kind of way to get another midfielder in there, but still retain the ball dominance that is a feature of Ange Postecoglou's game. I suppose the argument against that would be: are you going to be as ball dominant in Europe? Probably not. Well, certainly not compared to domestic football. But even in that note, everything that Ange Postecoglou says about playing in Europe is to implement his own style, not to seed the ball. So there is every chance that Beach Boys has a point here.
Yeah, I think it's an admirable philosophy to think that you can go and play your own game, but equally, I think when you're playing against Europe's elite, there may be a need to compromise in some of that. And to go back, I thought there was a very interesting point about someone talking about playing with two holding midfielders, playing that 4-2-3-1. That is something that I think might be a consideration going into Europe, because it allows you to embrace the style and philosophy of your own ideals while also offering a level of protection, and that's the one that I think might be quite intriguing.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I suppose this is an ideal time to segue into on-field stuff again, because we've spent 15 minutes there talking about a potential transfer. But Celtic obviously drew 2-2 with Blackburn on Saturday, Alison. Well, first of all, I suppose, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought it was a fairly competitive game for a pre-season game. I thought it was fairly feisty at times, to quote Matt O'Reilly. I thought it was quite competitive. I think it's what you probably need at this point. I think Ange Postecoglou would be disappointed with a late goal and an early goal. I think Celtic recovered from the first one, but I think if you're to take anything away from the last couple of weeks, what you would be observing is there is a real defensive sloppiness just now. I think from middle to front, Celtic look very good. I think there's a real assurance here in terms of the attacking play, but I think defensively there are areas that clearly are cause for concern at points.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I think it was a decent run out. I think defensively there's still moments there, but as Matt O'Reilly said after it, you'd rather make those mistakes in pre-season and learn from them. I suppose the key is that you learn from them, full stop though. I think the early goal would have scared some people, but I thought they did recover well from it. The second Blackburn goal almost changed the perception a wee bit because it ended a draw rather than a win. But overall, I think it was useful. To mention, I mean, you mentioned Matt O'Reilly there in that interview. He said he felt Blackburn were a wee bit nasty and leaving some on the Celtic players, but in a way that it reflected a competitive edge to the game, and that's ultimately what he wanted. I suppose we both agree with that.
Yeah, I do think it's what you want. I think you're only a fortnight away now from the season kicking off. I think you need to ramp up the intensity a bit. You need to be ready. And normally, by this stage of the season, Celtic are playing competitive games. Normally, you'd be in the thick of qualifiers now. You'd be kicking off the front and trying to get into to secure European football. So I think you do need that element just to be prepared and to be ready.
In terms of other takeaways from it, Anthony Ralston came off injured, but Ange Postecoglou said afterwards it's nothing serious. He's got a cut in his foot from one of the nasty tackles that O'Reilly mentioned. Rayo Hatate missed out because he felt a bit ill, and Georgios Yakimakis was away because his partner was giving birth. But I mean, the manager actually mentioned neither have managed to use those reasons to escape more running, because Hatate was on the running track, and a personal trainer was sent to Yakimakis. So I suppose that's just the joys of pre-season, Alison?
Yeah, I kind of thought, I don't know what you would have to do to get out of a day's training under Ange Postecoglou. I think you saw the images. I don't know if you saw the images last week of some of the Spurs players coming off the pitch and vomiting at the side of the park after their pre-season training and stuff, and you're thinking, gosh, they're clearly put through their paces and then some. And when I read the thing about sending sending a personal trainer out to the maternity ward. You know, you're thinking somebody standing doing laps of the car park and in the hospital somewhere. But yeah, I think clearly there is no respite and no hiding place pre-season training.
I've got one last thing to tell you all, and if you were listening Fridays, you'll know it. But once again, we're running a Twitter competition. This time, since obviously Celtic have started playing at home again, even though they're technically away on Wednesday, we thought we'd give away a new home top. So it's the same deal as before. You log on to your Twitter account, you retweet the post, follow the Celtic Way account, and that's you in the draw, which will be made on Friday. I'll put the link in the comments. It takes you straight to the post. But yeah, I think we'll call it there for today, shall we, Alison? Thanks for your contribution as always, and thanks as always for the comments as well, guys. We appreciate them. Two of us will be back here tomorrow, so we'll catch you all then.
Take care.